Alright, let's draw for turn. We're here to bring you Commander insights and hot tech to level up your game. Each episode focuses on a different topic with our adjusted 3-man pod this week to give you all our spicy take on it. Adam is not joining us this week for Yom Kippur.
He's observing Yom Kippur.
Yom Kippur. I'm never going to get that right. Yom Kippur. So, Adam, when you're listening to this later, we miss you, bud. We're hoping you come back in 2 weeks. Otherwise, we're dragging you back. Guys, as always, it's been 2 weeks. What's been up, Swazi? How you been?
I'm good, man. Good. Been doing a lot of working, unfortunately, but a lot of talking with Eric behind the scenes. We're trying to play some arena, do a lot of historic, just have a little grind session. But really, we couldn't until what we talk about next. These bans that happened today, or should I say, didn't happen today. And we'll get to that. What you been up to, Eric?
Talking to you, devious plans. I supersuited Sir Gwyn a lot, and just been a man about town pretty much, keeping it simple. Really, I redid my big thing is I redid my home office, so I'm stoked about that.
I have to say, it looks really nice. You have a nice backdrop compared to what we've been seeing when we play Commander and stuff.
Oh yeah, no, it's I have a dedicated spot on my desk just for Commander. It's like I always have a playmat. There's always a webcam over it and everything.
That's great. Actually really awesome. I gotta upgrade to something like that.
I'm a little jealous, not gonna lie.
What have you been up to, Sean?
Bit of Commander. I may have played a hot mess on Friday Night Budget. It was 84 lands. Ashling the Pilgrim had a bunch of damage multipliers.
Yeah, he lived the meme.
I did.
Red land, best land. I love it.
I did not win. In my first game, I got through 3 matches in under an hour. So they were quick and they were fun. The first game...
That's good, though.
Oh, it was good.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I mean, I can now safely say I spent 10 mana to recast Ashling the Pilgrim. Don't think I'm going to go through that again, but...
Probably not.
Yeah.
And I hope you don't.
I hope I don't.
I guess you have been up to other stuff because I built you a deck.
You did. You built me a Winota deck that is like on the radar to buy. So, I mean, that's going on.
I found you the most evil card that costs $2.
He did, actually. I'm going to save it as a surprise for when I actually pull the deck out.
Yeah, no one needs to know about it, but when you know, you know.
But yeah, man, it's been fun. And I mean, I hit Mythic at MTG Arena, and just living life.
Oh, congrats!
Thank you, sir. And I mean, honestly, it sounds like we've all had some pretty good weeks. I think
it's only gonna get better.
It is. And I'll just quickly speak for Adam. I've been having a blast. I've been playing some good Commander, and I got to kill some people in Commander. We miss you, buddy. We hope you're here.
Oh yeah, Adam's been on a complete tear.
Oh,
winning pods left and right.
Oh yeah, I'd call him undefeated at the minute, but
if you ain't first,
near enough, near enough.
Much. All right, well, we'll quickly move on because I think we got a lot to talk about and not a lot of time to go with it. News is on the stack. We've got a minute to talk about various news in the world of MTG, and let's see what's resolving today. So, first on the topic, the Commander Quarterly meeting. No changes.
Format's good.
Gotta love it.
They didn't.
At least one of them's okay. Shit.
Yeah. I mean, there's been some other stuff that's happened, but that's different. That's less of a rules thing and more of like a. We'll get into it briefly, but yeah, they said format's good.
Yeah, everything's like healthy. I mean, it's the most popular it's ever been, and it just keeps going on the rise. I don't think it's going to slow down.
Yeah, Wizards put out data that was like the Commander format's grown like 2 times or 3 times it's either 2 times in the past 3 years or 3 times in the last 2 years in terms of player base. It is now like the most widely played format, and it's nowhere remotely close.
Well, you said like 2 years. Yeah, I didn't play Commander 2 years ago. So yeah, it makes
most
sense.
people did. At this point, I'm pretty sure the numbers support that the majority of Commander players have started within the last 2 years.
Yeah, it's just been more on the up and up, and it's a great format to get new players into. But kind of touching on that, like, no rules change, we did get a new secret lair drop today. With respect to the Walking Dead, that are all unique cards, which are not printed anywhere else.
That are legal in Eternal format.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And not just
Vintage
yeah.
Commander.
Yeah.
This is
That
a terrible
you can only get in the secret lair, which is why the rules committee, to keep it brief, at first they said, okay, we don't have to do anything about this until the public uproar started happening today. The public discourse, I will word it as
rabble.
Suggested that they should rethink how they think about it. So all day today, just all of the members of the rules committee have just been listening to thousands of people in Discord and Twitter, just to get what people think. And I am under the impression that we might see them walk back on that belief. But they were open. I mean, they're always open to changing everything in the first place anyway. So it's not like they were set in stone. Nope, these cards are fine. Whatever. Keep going. You know, they might get banned. They might not. But Wizards of the Coast has also said, we can reprint these as like Magic themed with like the same text box and everything.
That is arguably the worst part, the worst sentence of this whole announcement.
Because they didn't imply that the Walking Dead ones would use like the Godzilla frame where it's like, you know, like Ghidorah, yada yada at the top, and then like a Luna underneath. It's gonna be the same frame.
Yeah, it was
presumably, because they haven't said otherwise. So you could say one of these cards is good. You can have an 8 of in your 60 card deck, or you can run 2 of them in your commander deck.
Yeah, which is a little insane.
So like it gets really finicky. So I'm interested to see what happens with it. It's just,
I seem like I'm the one that's always speaking up in respect to people's wallets as well. But if you have these secret lair only cards and the pre-order ends and you can no longer get them, and they've been showing lately they have no clue how to make a balanced card. What if they make another Oko, another card like that?
That's
that
the
everybody
word.
has to have, skyrockets to $70, $80, $90 more, and then they just like, okay, let's reprint it.
Well, and like here's where things get even more interesting. So if you live in South America or Asia Pacific, you literally cannot buy secret lairs from Wizards. You have to get the cards from the secondary market.
It's literally like limited availability to get and limited places to get. But you know, I think we need to see what's going to happen with the rules committee and what's going to go on for this, right?
Because the 2 legendaries that they did show are super playable.
Completely.
Like they actually look like decent cards. And like, I mean, we in our Discord earlier, like Rod in particular was like, I'm totally building the Golgari one. That one seems super cool because it's like it's zombies and equipment and stuff like that. It's like super him.
Yeah,
but
it fits up the alley.
It's just going to be interesting to see what happens because this is very different than anything anyone anywhere is used to.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately it's something we have to keep an eye on. So hopefully some good comes to this. But I think that's everything resolved for News on the Stack. And, you know, I think it's a good time to delve into today's amazing topic, which we're all actually really excited about. Lands.
Yeah, we got a little more fired up about that news than I thought we would. I feel good.
The fire is in the belly now. That's good, though. We're going to need you to be like a Valakut here, Swazi.
Oof.
I need you to go red instead of blue.
Now, dude, as a side tangent, he's not a blue player in Modern.
I really like.
You got a point.
I'm not a blue player in a lot of places, to be honest. Don't tell anybody. It's my MO on the show, man. Don't ruin it.
Okay. So I take that back. Titan Shift runs blue cards, and now it's Amulet Titan, and that's Simic.
My highest ever tournament placing was 4th at a regional event, and I played mono red goblins. I was like Odyssey block goblin bidding. It was
I
amazing.
mean, we all know that deep down you've always just been a Timmy Spike, but you just think you're a Spike.
I mean, tell that to my Psychotog deck, but
No one needs.
nobody needs to do that. I don't even want to play that.
Yeah.
Well, instead of playing Psychotog, let's get on to our topic. Lands you aren't running, but probably should in Commander.
I like how you framed that like a whose line is it anyway, like scenes
tried.
from a hat topic.
I thank you for getting the reference. Speaking of lands that you aren't running but probably should, I'm gonna let EK take the first stab because I know this is like his favorite thing when it comes to talk about for lands.
No, but like I got this from talking to Steven for so long about Magic. Lands you aren't running but probably should. Basic lands.
Yup. Plains, island, swamp, mountain, forest. That's it.
And in parentheses, the snow versions of them too, because there is a completely different discussion to be had about those as well, but we can bucket them together.
Yeah, I mean functionally they do the same thing aside from snowlands making snow mana when relevant, but
When relevant, and there are snow matters payoffs.
yes, that's true too.
Definitely.
But yeah,
It
like
conceals information too. Occasionally.
occasionally, but they're better with by diversifying like that. You're better with Field of the Dead. You have snow basic, or you have like snow matters payoffs like Dead of Winter, which is basically Toxic Deluge. On Thin Ice, which is an O-ring, that's like a land enchantment. And then a bunch of like other cantrip effects. So you're opening yourself up to card draw. But for real though, basic lands are the best lands in the game. They come into play untapped. They give you immediate value. They're immune to many land destruction and land hampering effects, like Back to Basics. What is that? Ruinous
Ashes.
Blast.
Ruinous Blast,
From-
From the Ashes. There's a few.
A 60 card, non-standard favorite tech card, Blood Moon.
Yeah.
Magus Limit. Like cards you just always have to be aware of that exist. They don't care about basics. They say whatever.
It's really important in a game of Commander that you take 25% of the turns, not 50% of the turns. So it's important that when you play something, it has to, in today's world of Magic, it didn't used to be this way, but in today's world, if you play something, it needs to give you value immediately. And this is the most cost-effective, simple, arguably best way to do that. It's just the basic lands. Play more of them. You don't need a bunch of crazy tap lands and stuff. Just play a land.
Yeah.
Think about it this way: even just like a lot of the good efficient ramp cards care about basic lands the most, like Cultivate, Kadama's Reach,
Rampant Growth. I mean, yeah,
stuff like that. Like the very foundation of most ramp packages is vested in basic lands.
Yeah, I mean, and the biggest aspect too, like you guys said, like it coming into play untapped. I mean, coming from me, I've played Guild Gates a ton. I can tell you the detriment of a land coming into play tapped versus untapped is huge. Doesn't matter if the land gives you 2 mana. An untapped land that gives you 1 is still part of your color that you can play stuff.
And here's the fun of Commander. If you look at our 2 windows, in that window, you have somebody who will play a bunch of Guild Gates and try to win with that. You in my window, you will never see a sleeved Guild Gate in any of my decks. Period.
I literally took out every single tap land. I went on the record and said the only tap lands that are worth running are Field of the Dead and Valakut.
Can confirm, he did say that.
I like blatantly.
I don't disagree, but
there are certain ones that are like certain other ones that like you can make a case for. But in my opinion, with like what I like to play, the only ones that are worth running are those 2. Like, Mystic Sanctuary, say you don't have another island, but like if you're running Mystic Sanctuary, you want it to come in untapped because you want to be able to get the spell back in your deck.
And for that, you need islands or basic islands.
Or even like the castles from Eldraine need basic.
Yeah,
I mean, you can have like the non-basic tagged lands, but like the easiest way to have the castles come in untapped is to play basics.
yeah, nothing everyone who's played a standard or 60 card format with castles knows how frustrating it is when you're running more than 2 of them and you have it in your opening hand and you have to mulligan that. Imagine how much more frustrating that would be in a singleton format when you draw your 1 of 99 castle and it's unplayable because you don't have a basic.
Well, to double down on that point too, like how many tagged lands are there? There's like the shocks, some checks from Zendikar.
Yeah, there's fewer than you would think if you're trying to, especially when you realize you can only play the 2 or 3 colors of your commander. You can find a lot of these tagged lands that say island, but then they have another color you can't play in your deck, so you can't use them. So like your options aren't as plentiful as you would think.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're not going to have the problem in a monocolor deck, but like a 2-color deck, you are very limited.
Absolutely.
For sure. I mean, 2-color, I would say like 2-color, aside from mono, is one of the more prominent types, and having a land that comes into play tapped in a 2-color still hinders you on a potential turn 1, turn 3, turn 4 play. And those are some of the most impactful terms. If you're a mana short and behind, like, those are potential turns you don't want to be.
Well, and as you increase the power level of your pods, the amount of turns that actually happen in the game are going to significantly reduce.
Completely. Turn 3.
So the last thing you want to do is to have, one of, like, say the game is like 7 turns, have one of those turns where your land for turn that you
did nothing.
Yeah, you are essentially skipping 16% of your turns. Like you are playing, like, every single turn you are playing 1 turn less efficiently than every single other person. And if you just ran a basic instead. But we could literally have an entire show about basic lands alone.
Yo, we could call it Back to Basics. No, not
right.
Okay.
Fine.
Anyways, moving along.
I'm writing this down.
How?
See, that's like a fundamentals episode and there's going to be that one guy who just thinks that's a Stacks episode by reading the name of the title.
Wouldn't be surprised.
Oh, it's not.
I have played against Back to Basics. It's not fun.
It's
really fun, but it's not fun.
One more closing comment on basic lands. They can be the absolute most inexpensive card in your deck, or they can probably be the most expensive card in your deck. There are so many choices of basic lands. You can have anything you want, and that's kind of the coolest thing about them. You can get basic lands that you truly connect with and like the art or like the artist, or just buy them because they're super old. Like, I'm just trying to get as many alpha and beta islands as I can because they're the oldest ones I can find. That's what that means to me. And I think the art is gorgeous. But you can find anything that works for you, and there's a basic land for that, and that's really cool.
Ravnica lands, hands down.
What was that old saying like 8 years ago when like the app generation was starting to, like, it was like an Apple campaign. It was like, there's an app for that. There's a basic for that.
It's true though.
Okay. I got the bad joke in for the show. So good jokes from here on out.
Fine.
No questions asked.
If I have to.
But I believe we have more lands written down as to more lands that we should be running. I'll be completely honest. I only run 1, maybe 2 of the lands that we're about to talk to. So I learned a lot by researching for the show.
I think I'm not far behind you. I think I maybe run 3 or 4, so I got some stuff to change.
I run the ones that I contributed. I don't run any of the others. I feel terrible about it.
But like, I mean, to be fair, a couple of these I literally never even heard of.
Well, that's what this is for. I'm glad you tuned into the cast.
Yeah.
I'll take this one though. This one's fun.
Do it.
So, Homeward Path. This one, I actually didn't know about this one, so I'm glad that I found it.
I knew about this, but I don't run it.
So, tap, add a colorless mana to your mana pool. Or you can tap it, and each player gains control of all the creatures he or she owns. Just last week, I talked about a commander, 2 weeks ago, talked about a commander deck where I just want to steal all your stuff. So, get all your stuff back. It's kind of cool.
And there's some pretty popular win conditions, especially in red, that involve stealing everyone's stuff for like a turn, and you're just like, nah, tap Homeward Path, and then you just completely shut down their insurrection turn or something like that. Or like blue has a lot of mind control effects and stuff like that. Nah,
I
Give me
mean,
that back.
even from that too, like let's say your like main win con is like Voltron, right? Like getting your Voltron commander back. There's a lot of ways that it just helps keep your stuff, but the nice thing about this lane too is it's also a way to sort of play politics at the table. Let's say I'll use a game from a few weeks back as an example. I took a player's Baneslayer Angel with a corrupted conscience. Another player at the table dispelled my corrupted conscience, and the player got their Baneslayer back. That was a political move for them, and they were like buddy buddy for the rest of the game. And I'm like, rip, okay, guess I'm the enemy.
yeah, don't steal Rod's stuff.
Lesson learned.
Yeah. The nice thing with a lot of the utility lands, especially like this one, is they still tap for colorless.
I think it's important that they do something as far as making mana the turn they come into play with a lot of these.
Yeah, which is why, like, a lot of people think of like Maze of Ith as a utility land. It doesn't tap for mana though.
Yeah, it doesn't. It just kind of helps.
Do whatever. Never actually seen Maze of Ith be good.
I've seen it once. I've lost to an effect for it to prevent damage. I mean,
Yeah.
it has its uses, but the downside is, it doesn't generate mana.
No, it's not you wouldn't put it in a land spot. You would put it in like a utility spot in your deck.
Exactly.
But it takes a land drop.
Yeah, it's definitely not a land.
Yeah, it's land in disguise.
Same idea with Temple of the False God. Temple of the False God is a ramp spell disguised as a land.
Yeah, because
It's
you
not
have
a
to
land.
skip a land drop for it.
Well, it only works if you have five total lands.
Yeah.
So if you drop it turns 1 through 4, you've skipped a land drop functionally.
Yeah, it's only good in like later on terms. There's uses for it, but that's depends on the deck.
I think the biggest thing with Homeward Path is it keeps everyone honest, and then like you get to keep your stuff. Like there's a huge mana disparity that is created through like mind control and stealing effects, and Homeward Path keeps that all in check. And it's just like just slot it in, cut something else, add it in. That's
It alters.
it makes man. It's not a unitasker like Maze or something else. Like you can actually do something with it.
Honestly, it's just nothing worse than having that one really cool thing you're trying to do and somebody takes it. No, I want to have fun. Give me my thing back.
Yeah, I want to build my own Ulamog. That's a 11/11 flying, double striking,
Annihilating.
Oh no!
Well, like our Sir Gwyn game the other day, I had double strike with Sword of Body in Mind and Sword of War and Peace, and she was an 11/11.
Oh,
That's
So
okay.
like, and Ulamog mills 20 cards. So
yeah, that's right.
build your own Ulamog.
that's the, I guess, cost-effective way to do it, or is it not cost-effective? I don't even know.
Durable?
Ulamog's what? 10 mana? 11 mana?
Yeah, about 11 mana, I think. Might be
6 plus 2. Okay, so for 1 more mana, you did it in Marduk colors as opposed to colorless, and then you did extra burn damage and got life gain, and you drew a card because of her attack trigger.
Yo, I'd pay an extra mana for that.
Yeah, it's probably better than Ulamog. But before we completely derail the show for the umpteenth time, that will inevitably keep happening. I'm gonna bring up a land that I learned about by posing this same question that we asked each other to the Commander Replay, aka the Boros Discord, and that was Nephalia Academy. So it's an uncommon from Eldritch Moon. If a spell or an ability an opponent controls causes you to discard a card, you may reveal that card and put it on top of your library instead of putting it anywhere else, and then it taps for a colorless. Discuss.
Love it. Denying things going to the graveyard and back to the deck to avoid a potential awful discard is awesome, especially with all the wheel effects going around in Commander, between red's wheel effects and blues.
like Croxa exists, and like there's a lot of black
Oh,
discard recently. Like Tiny Bones was printed and everything like I feel like I've seen more discard recently than most other strategies in terms of like becoming more popular in the discourse of the community.
for sure. I mean, it also helps for like protecting potential pieces in hand that you need to save for later. If you have a board clear threat in hand and someone's forcing a discard or a wheel effect, I mean, I'd rather ditch the top card of my library if I've got something more important in hand. Yeah, that's a hands down trade off.
Yeah. The big thing with this card is I wouldn't run it in like every single deck, but like if your like play group has a bunch of discard, it's just really easy to slot in. Like just really clean, really nice.
Yeah,
It's a really good card to keep in your back pocket. I think that's great. That's the whole idea behind a lot of these cards. They're like they might not be playable in every deck, unlike the next one that we're going to talk about, but they're just good.
yeah. I mean, touching on the next one, like I had a blast actually using this in a recent commander deck that I built for Palladium Wars. So the card is Scavenger Grounds. It is a desert land, taps for colors, but you can tap to and sack it, sacrifice a desert, and exile all cards from all graveyards. Like, this is Bajuka Bog in colors that aren't swamp or black.
Yeah, it's huge. It's also, for colors that aren't running Rest in Peace or don't want to run Rest in Peace.
Yeah. Or, I mean, I need Graveyard Hate. Like, instead of having a graveyard or a artifact slot in your deck take it up, you can run it as a land. It taps for mana. Like, it's not completely useless, right? Which is awesome.
No. Well, I think the big thing that I was going to say is I feel like more and more we're seeing every color be able to do something with their graveyard. So it's just a good way to keep it in check.
Yeah.
For every color.
I thought it was something that we were kind of like going away from, but it seems like the more we get into this like power stretch we're stuck in of releases and Magic, the more the graveyard seems to matter. So I love things like this for sure.
Like imagine if I don't know. I'm gonna pose a side tangent right now. Imagine if Scavenger Grounds was in standard.
Scary.
4 of.
Oh,
or
man.
At least the 2 to 3 of in almost every deck.
Yeah.
Yeah, it still would
Like-
be. Like, you're running around with
Like
rogues and mill.
Uro and Croxa would not be an issue.
No, they wouldn't be.
I mean, Croxa is not an issue, but like Uro.
Well, Uro was an issue.
Definitely be played.
Yeah. But like you would play this
Absolutely.
without a question.
It would be something like Field of Ruin when the first well, actually right now we still have it. I still think
Yeah.
more people should than do, but yeah, it's just you got to run some of those if it goes around.
And I think every deck needs a way to deal with the graveyard, even if it's just like one card. And Scavenger Grounds is like probably the most innocent way of dealing with the graveyard because it's just it's just a land slot.
Mm-hmm.
You're running presumably like 38 on like a more casual deck. The problem is when you start getting more competitive and the games are going quicker, the first thing that people start cutting is their lands. They're playing between like 30 and 34 to 35 lands. So the slots do get a little tighter, but I do know some people who still make room for a Scavenger Grounds.
Yeah, I mean, if you can make room for a Scavenger Grounds and you're not in the colors for potential graveyard hate or don't have slots in your deck, I would absolutely say hands down run it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well,
What do we have next?
another Eldritch Moon land because the set just gives us all kinds of good lands.
Apparently.
Familiar with this one from many control decks, but it's a really, really good legendary land. It's our first legendary one we're going to mention. You can play Gyre Reach Sanitarium. Taps and adds colorless mana to your mana pool, which is kind of an important thing we're talking about here. But for 2 mana and tapping this land, each player draws a card, then discards a card. So everyone gets the loot.
For
Awesome.
colors that don't really have card draw, this is card draw. And I
Mhm.
think a lot of people need to be less afraid of discarding, because you can't think of discarding as discarding. It's hand sculpting.
Yeah, you're shaping your hand to what you need it to be. You want answers in hand. You only get answers by drawing. Pitch away what's not gonna help you. Like you're.
I,
Was gonna,
I'm a little offended by the whoever left this note. In colors outside of blue and black, card draw can be a luxury.
wasn't me.
I believe green is like also a card draw color.
With the last
Well,
few
now,
sets, I'd agree.
yeah. Um, and like while you do give everyone cards, um, you get to play politics by saying, "Hey, I'm giving everyone cards," but you're also making them discard cards, and at times, that's relevant.
Especially when you can.
At other times, it's helping opponents because, like we just mentioned, everyone like in Commander, the graveyard is a second hand.
Yeah. I like the aspect, like it is it's two sides of the coin, right? The odd time with the draw, yeah, you're helping, but you're also forcing them to discard. There may be a time when their hand is filled with potential big threats and you're forcing a threat out of hand.
Games inevitably get to the point where it gets very grindy. You know, everyone's got like 2, 3 cards in hand. Like, you know, when you're forcing them to discard 33 to 50% of their hand, that really matters. You know,
also, I think we're not putting enough value on you get to draw a card.
Yeah.
Like the most important thing here is you're getting the next card off your library. You're doing your thing. Don't worry about them.
And presumably you are going you are going to have the initiative to be able to use that card that you just drew, presumably.
Yeah. I mean, you would activate this on the end step before your turn, so you're the one that gets to take best advantage of the draw.
Absolutely.
I'm loving it. I think the next one will just be like a quick little side tangent because it is.
That's a little cheating. This next one's cheating a little bit, but it's like it's a whole cycle. We'll mention this one, but we'll mention the cycle.
Yeah, I think the cycle's more important. I threw this in because it is something we don't see a lot of. So it's Growing Rights of Itlimoc. Essentially, when it comes in, you'll get to tutor a creature in the top 4 cards. When you have its transform factor done, it'll flip over into a land that function as a budget Gaia's Cradle. I see a lot of creature decks not having access and running this, and instead trying to pursue the Gaia's Cradle option. And instead of going for Gaia's Cradle, I think this would be a fine inclusion instead. That was the side
considering the fact that it's like $35 versus $600.
Yeah, it's like there's no reason you should not be considering a Growing Rights of Itlimoc in a creature-heavy deck where you have access to green. Save your money, and good card.
Yeah, and like there's a whole cycle of these like quote-unquote flip lands from Ixalan. And there's even some 2-color ones as well. Like I know the Izzet one is pretty popular. Storm the Vault. My favorite one of these is Dousing Dagger. And
that's a fantastic
one. No, so that's an equipment, and when you deal damage with a creature equipped with it, then it flips, and it essentially becomes a Gilded Lotus on a land, or like I was about to say Lotus Field, but you don't sacrifice lands. It just you flip it, and you have a land that taps for 3 of a color.
Okay.
So like there's a lot of really good flip lands in this cycle. So I'm glad that you at least brought up Growing Rights to like open up the potential to mention the cycle. Like there's something for everyone in that cycle.
Absolutely, and that's why I kind of wanted to touch on it, but brief, because those are things we kind of see, but not a lot, and they are just great alternatives for other things. I mean, the next one we got here is Throne of the High City and Ark of Orazca?
Yeah.
Yeah, so, like, that's a land when it comes in. You get the city's blessing, 10 permanents, you become the monarch. That was from that same kind of cycle. Like, the lands in Ixalan, I would say, were just great examples of things that don't often get included, but give you advantage. I mean, Ike, you mentioned a ton how important monarch is in being for that card advantage.
For colors that don't get, like, easy access to card advantage and card draw, the Monarch is very important to them. Because chances are the colors or the decks that are going to leverage Monarch as a part of their strategy, or just like a side tangent on their strategy, are going to be able to do it better than everyone else. Like I don't know, like mono blue isn't really going to be stealing the Monarch anytime soon. Just because chances are mono blue probably isn't playing board, very, very hard.
Chances are I'm still drawing more cards than that guy.
No, yeah, you definitely are. But like, the Monarch is going to make up for one of those draws.
Right.
The one thing I will say about Arch of Orazca in particular is the card draw that's attached to it only happens when you have the City's Blessing, and you have to tap it and pay 5 to draw a card. So it's really slow. But for some decks that might have mana generation but not card draw, it's a good card for that.
Yeah, I mean, it functions as a mana sink, and come late game when you're at the later turns and stage and you have that excess mana, I don't feel bad about paying 5 mana in for card advantage.
Like I don't know, I'm thinking like mono black or like mono red, where mono black, by the time you hit late game, you're tapping your Cabal coffers for like 30
at least.
but you might not have the cards. Well, this is a way to at least get one. Or like, mono red has all their rituals, or like say you're running Nahab and then you go to your second main phase and have 70 mana. Like, you gotta have something to do with it.
Right.
I added an addendum to these two cards, which I guess would have been a better addendum, or in a weird way, a worse addendum to Gaia Reach Sanitarium. I said just run Mikakoru, Center of the Sea, instead, which is a legendary land you can tap for it colorless. Again, very important. You tap 2, or you pay 2 and tap it. Each player draws a card.
Yeah, so I mean...
So is this a better Arch of Orazca, Throne of the High City, or is this a worse Gaia Reach Sanitarium? Or is it a better Gaia Reach Sanitarium because you don't discard?
Big brain.
Honestly, it's situational. I would definitely say situational. Like, there are going to be aspects when you want the discarding effect from the Gaia Reach, and there are going to be times when you want to not discard, and Mikorio just becomes better.
Yeah, I guess where my head was at was, so I pay 5 and tap Arch of Orazca to draw a card, or I can pay 2 and have everyone draw a card.
If I'm paying 5, something better than drawing a card is happening. Sorry.
Yeah. If I'm paying 5 for anything, something big has to happen. Yeah. But paying two, there's a huge astronomical difference between paying 2 and paying 5.
Completely. I'd also say, depends on the deck, though. Like what we said, if you're running a Cabal Coffers deck, funneling that 5 in for a single card draw I don't think feels good, just because...
Inconsequential.
You have mana plenty, but if mana is not the plenty, I think Mikorio is a lot better, or especially in a group hug style deck. This is something you want to play to your strategy. So it's situational for all, but I mean, in terms of mana cost to availability, I'd run Mikorio over Gaia Reach or Arc of Azcanta, just because it's no discard and it is 2, hands down.
Yeah, if I'm running a deck that wants to bin cards, then I would run Gaia Reach over Mikorio.
Yeah.
Because it's actually helping me. I'm drawing a card and I'm loading up my second hand.
I.e. your graveyard.
Yeah. Mr. Constructed, do you want to talk about this card? Because this is a card that you got me hooked on a lot recently.
He is talking to me. Okay.
Hey, you're Mr. Constructed to me.
So the next land that I threw in here was Blast Zone, because who doesn't like removing things? So Blast Zone is a land that enters the battlefield with a charge counter on it. It taps for a colorless, and for X, and then tapping the land, you can put X charge counters on it. For 3, tap, sacrifice, Blast Zone, you blow this baby up and take everything with that converted mana cost equal to the number of charge counters with it. So...
This is a wrath on a land.
It's a really good way... It's a really good way for colors that suffer in removing things, or if you are anticipating, like we're talking about discard or blue, where we're relying on getting that card out of your hand before you play it, or stopping it while it's still on the stack.
Yeah.
Something slips by. There's not a whole lot of ways for like blues. I can bounce it back to your hand. I can like slow it down. Like there's not a whole lot of ways I can kill that thing. So it's a really cool way of hitting that. It reaches Planeswalker. It reaches everything, which is very.
And the interesting thing with Blast Zone is it hits that specific mana cost based on how many charge counters on it. So you can set it to a certain amount of counters, and then have it dodge all of your stuff, but only hit like someone else's stuff. Like say you have like a lot of 2-drops and like 2-cost artifacts, but everyone else has like 3s and 4s and some 5s. Then you can just set it to 3, 4, or 5, and then use it as like a targeted, removal spell essentially, but it's a land.
Or like also, it's just very powerful in 2 different. You can leave it set at 1 or 2, and you're basically nullifying an entire elf ball deck, an entire
yeah,
that kind.
That's true.
You can't develop their board, or you have the ability to do that, and now you have a point in the politics conversation that can come up. I won't put my Blast Zone up to 2 if such and such happens, or just blow the whole damn table up.
I mean, this is like baby Pernicious Deed or like baby Nev's Disc. Just like these like huge bomb, like set and like control like the will of the table, but it's a land.
I have nightmares on this card. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I was struggling in standard. I wasn't like struggling in standard for a while, but I was like, Steven, I'm just like having some problems with like mono red and like cavalcade and stuff like that in standard. And he's just like, have you tried running Blast Zone? Because like everything in that deck is like 1 or 2 mana.
Yeah.
And like Blast Zone comes in with a counter on it right away. So like you can, you can immediately have it come in and wrath all the 1-drops, which is sometimes just backbreaking for these faster aggro decks or like a goblin deck.
Oh, completely.
If they dump their hand and then you wipe the board, they just can't replenish. They can't recover. They're pretty much out of the game.
Yeah.
I just had the big brain thing with Blast Zone in particular. You can proliferate the counters on it right away.
Yes,
Absolutely.
you can.
So if you like really need to like pump this thing up real quick, you got like the evolution sage or like Atraxa or something like that. Like you just go to town.
Like Contagion Engine 2, like artifact. But
trying
to get it in. There's a lot of ways in that.
This would actually also be a really good land in like a colorless deck too, because colorless tends to struggle with removal.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and they ramp up a lot.
For colorless, which is super important. It actually taps for mana.
Yeah.
And it has a lot of text on the card if you're looking at the card. Nowhere on the card does it say that it enters the battlefield tapped, which you would just like look at all that text and you assume. But it's
like every other card that has that sort of effect comes in tapped.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
except for Pernicious Deed that I can think of.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. Everything generally with that kind of ability, it has to enter in tapped. I mean, Nev's Disc is entering tapped, but this just comes in and can blow up.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, like, even just touching on the colorless deck, like, colorless decks, typically when they're going for their commander, are going to have a lot of open mana to itself. So they have, this is also a potential mana sink in some situations.
Absolutely.
When you can just...
Well, I feel like a colorless deck is going to run, like, pretty much every single land we're going to talk about tonight. Because, like, they're all colorless, except for one that taps for generic mana.
Right. But speaking of other... That's really funny, actually. Speaking of other lands, I'm just going to segue into the same thing, put these all in here together. You need to have ways to interact with these lands if your opponents have them. Otherwise, they have very, very powerful things that they can be doing.
I mean, it's not just like these lands; it's like any land. Let's be completely broad because it's true.
So you can have your wastelands, your strip mines, things like that. But I just
people know about those.
Ghost Quarter, Tectonic Edge, and Field of Ruin are some pretty inexpensive options that I almost think you have to have in your deck. I at least have 2 of them.
Yeah,
I do
too. I do too. I tried to
one.
recently.
All of these, one sacrifices for free, one sacrifices for one, and one sacrifices for two, and all destroy either a land. Ghost Quarter can hit a land, period, or the other ones both hit non-basics, which again goes into our reasoning of running more basics. You're immune to two of these.
The big thing with these three is you destroy the basic land or the non-basic land, but then it replaces with a basic land. So if you're playing against someone who's like super greedy, like say like running a Hermit Druid deck, or just like running a 4-color amalgamation, they're not going to have a lot of basics. So you might even just catch them off guard and say, "Actually, I just straight up de-ramped you."
Yep.
Yeah.
Like you might not even replace it.
I can't tell you the amount of times I've said "fail to find" in my Magic career. It's frustrating.
Well, I mean, like we just kind of said, like some decks don't even really run basics at all. I mean, in my food chain deck, I run one basic forest. If my land, if the second land gets destroyed by like a Tectonic or Ghost Quarter or Field of Ruin, past that, I've got no basic fetches. I have nothing to find. Like I'd be like swallowing.
Yeah, like Path of Exile is like not a even trade on like there's just a lot of vulnerabilities opened up by not running basics.
Okay.
But kind of going on to like things that aren't basics, the storage lands are kind of a cool cycle of things that aren't basics but can get you some mana access, right? Like we had storage lands from Cold Snaps. They were 2 colors. You funnel in stuff. You have availability of mana at a later turn. Like
and those are interesting. In 2-color decks in particular, because you can get both of your colors temporarily, but by the time you probably run out of the counters on them, you're gonna be set.
Yeah, like it's what's the best way to phrase it? Like limited time ramp. You're getting access to what you need to get a powerful turn, either to push ahead.
If I would rather like dump into a storage land than take a turn off.
Yeah, definitely. Like at least your mana is going somewhere and it's going to be accessible at a later turn. I think that's kind of the real power of them.
Yeah, and just continuing to move for the sake of keeping things interesting. We talked about the Ixalan cycle of lands earlier, but we made special mention of Thaumatic Compass, which flips into Spires of Araska and Mystifying Maze. And that's just like colorless ramp. And you get colorless ramp attached to turning into another land in of itself.
Well, on top of which too, that Maze of Ith, right? This is Maze of Ith with mana.
Yeah, it's Maze of Ith that I don't have to use a land drop on, because like Sean said earlier, it's not that Maze of Ith is a bad card. It just sometimes you just have to use your land drop for it, and you might not want to do that. So this is just an alternative to that.
So I think we were touching on the next cycle was the Tainted Lands. That was able to play dual color, have availability to play additional 3-color. You get better access to your colors for fixing mana, right? Like those.
Yeah, and the big thing is it's for black land, like for black mana bases.
That's true.
It's a cycle I forget that exists. It's really, I haven't played them in a decade plus. It's really interesting, but they're really good.
I can't even think that I've ever seen a Tainted Land in all honesty. Like,
I've literally never seen this.
Yeah, that's new. I
don't run them.
Maybe we should take notes from ourselves.
I mean, that was the idea of this, right?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I mean, everything is a new learning lesson, right? Like, if you're not learning something new every week about Commander to take new stuff away, what are you doing?
Yeah, and it's the same idea. So we talked about the storage lands, but there's also depletion lands, and the thing that I don't like about these is they do come in tapped, but for a limited time you can also get both of your colors. So it is a little bit of fixing at a cost for your mid game. You know they're real good if they come down on like turn 1, turn 2. That way you're like your turn 3, 4, 5, when you're really starting to try and shape your game plan, they can help you do that more consistently. The nice thing about these is they come in the precons, but they're honestly some of the first lands that I see people cut from their precons when they're upgrading their precons.
Yeah, I mean, they come in handy as, like, if you're just starting out, you don't have much selection. They're great for that. Past a certain point, when you start being able to form more of a collection, you're getting maybe, like, you know, the traditional lands, like you've heard of shock lands or other additional basics, and formatting your deck a little more. You would probably consider cutting these, but, like, in the interim, for a budget restriction, new player, they're handy. Despite coming into play tapped, it's a good thing to have.
They are a very easy way to do a budget conscious multicolored land base. Are they gonna be seen, you know, in that like 7+ level of play on the power scale? Probably not. But like, there's no reason to say that they can be a mainstay in everywhere else on the scale of power in Commander.
Completely. I mean, also just kind of touching on like budgetary lands, these also come into play tap, but you know, the temple lands, right? They
just got reprinted.
Yeah.
So they're cheap.
Yeah, because we need it again. It's been so long.
Theros, man. But you know, it is.
I would rather. I mean, we've all heard my soapbox. I think every single one of your lands should come in untapped whenever possible. I think being able to have 1 mana right away is worth more than a scry, but I know I'm very finicky when it comes to that soapbox and everything like that. But for a 2-color deck in particular, where fixing your colors, you know, if like, let me rephrase that. If you are a 2-color deck where you are very pip heavy and that gets a little finicky sometimes, I think a temple land is worth it and worth a heavy consideration that some people might not consider in those sometimes, because they might think how I think, oh, all of my lands have to come in untapped.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, it also depends on what you're doing with your deck. If you're a very proactive deck to do things right away, I would definitely say don't go down the path of tap lands. If you're a little bit slower or proactive, do need the mana fixing, tap land is a consideration if there's an upside. I think if you're playing a tap land, you need an upside to it, and
it needs a really big upside.
Yeah.
And maybe for some people, that scrying one, that might be it. I know, like scry in 60 card formats, from everything that Sensei Steven has taught me, scrying in 60 card formats is like very strong.
Yeah, but
there's a lot of redundancy in your deck. So the scry is very impactful.
I think scrying is a very good ability. I don't know about scrying on my tap land in standard, but
yeah.
But yeah, I like these lands, but I was actually like listening to you make your point, and I was thinking I'm more likely to play this in my monocolored deck because I'm not so worried about it screwing up my mana colors.
But all the temples are for the guilds.
Oh, that's what I meant. Oh shit, you're right. I was thinking of something. I'm thinking of the castles in my head.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, probably.
Okay, yeah.
There are other tap lands that like more people can run. And I know like there's a whole deck built around one of these, the man lands.
Oh yeah.
For 2-color decks.
Mm-hmm.
Like I know there's like a Dimir Creeping Tar Pit deck in some format somewhere. But like for Azorius in particular, like Celestial Colonnade,
The mainstay win condition. It'll get the job done.
Yeah, like for a deck that doesn't really play the board, but like inevitably will have a lot of mana, like paying 2 to like get a 3/4. That might be worth it.
It puts your opponents on a clock is the big thing too, right? Like even
I mean, it's a lot different when there's 20 health versus 40 health, but like in conjunction with like some other stuff, like say you're running like the Teamer Omnath, or who's like very elemental matters.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the man lands are all elementals, so you can likely buff them.
Yeah,
and get like get other stuff out of it too.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
but you can also just like activate it and get a blocker when you might need it.
I was just gonna say that. Yeah, like that. I think that's the point that a lot of people will make or miss. I should say. Sorry. Like if you're in a combat centric situation and you are not creature heavy, this is a great option to have to kind of save your life from taking combat damage. Like they're not small blockers for the most part. There is
they're all like 3/3s, 3/4s. I think there's a 2. One of them is a 2/3. They're all different. I know that, but on average, they're like a decent butt at the very least.
Yeah.
And I think this last one is something that kind of got on everyone's radar after Amonkhet got added back to Magic Arena, and that's the cycling lands.
They're awesome.
Yeah.
I love being able to throw away an essentially a dead draw mid to late game when I don't need a land and I need something else. Like, it's functionally great that I get to draw that. And in the early game, if I needed a land, it's there for me. It's awesome.
Yeah. Well, and the triumphs fill the same role too. Like those cycle as well.
Mm-hmm.
The thing with that Sean mentioned is they do come in tapped. A lot of like the colored utility lands that not a lot of that we think people need to run more. They do come in tapped, but drawing a card is huge. Like chances are the person who's winning the commander game is the person who either ramped the most or drew the most cards, and this gets you halfway there.
Yeah, and like, it's the advantage of when you need, like Swazo said, either it's a land or it's a draw. And I think like we can even say safely based on sort of delving out of Commander for a second, but to Standard, with like the modal lands, the spells that become lands, having that availability of either a spell or land as needed. This is draw or land as needed. That's a powerful effect that I think more often than not definitely gets.
Oh yeah, I think what needs to be done with those is figure out the math. Like, are they worth taking up a land slot to run one of those instead? But I think a lot of people are going to start considering those, and I think the pathways also bring up a very interesting conversation as well, because they can be either or for your colors, but they come in untapped. You only get one of the colors, once it's down on the table, but it is fixing.
It is fixing on the color that you need, and the untap is I think the huge thing. Like, it's sort of in a way a shock land for free, but you are only restricted to one color, but you choose when you need it.
Yeah, exactly. And in a pip heavy deck where like I always bring up the example of like decks that lean heavy on white. White is a very pip heavy color. You think about it, like even like Avacyn is 5 and 3 white. Angel of Jubilation is 1 and 3 white.
Yeah.
Archangel of Tides is 3 white pips and everything like that. And even the color combos that splash white, Gisela, red 2 white, and Azorius Supreme Verdict is quite a popular commander card, one of the most popular wraths in my opinion, because it can't get countered.
Yeah,
that's very pip heavy. And so being able, I guess the point being, and I know I'm rambling, being able to fix your pips at the very minimum is incredibly important. And I think that's something that these lands are able to do.
Yeah, no, absolutely agree. I think
so. Like, who cares if they come in untapped or tapped?
It's the important thing is the mana fixing. I mean, like after our discussion tonight, I probably think I have some homework to go do on 10 commander decks, and I got some reevaluating on the land base to do.
I believe you're gonna go buy like a dozen strip mines because they're super cheap now.
I might,
with
or I
the
might just go buy
with the expedition printing. Yeah.
Options.
I mean,
that'll save you some money.
It'll save you like $16 per. At least
that would let me finish the Winota deck that I need to make.
Yeah.
But
hey, to be fair, that deck is like $96.
I know it's pretty affordable. It's gonna get done. I promise.
Cheap. Yeah, it's cheap. It's cheap.
But friends,
I'm not holding you anything.
No, I know. I'm getting it done because it's just did. But I'm gonna say, in the interest of time, because puck drops soon and things got to get going.
Yeah.
We got to go see Tampa take away their game win here for the fourth win. It's game 6. If they get their fourth, they're going on, and that'll be the end of the road for the others. So, guys, you can find us at Draw for Turn on Twitter and at Draw for Turn Podcast on Instagram. We post weekly discussion topics. Drop us a follow. Get in on the conversation. Hit us up in our Discord if you also want to get on the Commander games. Swazi, why don't you take us away, my dude?
I'll start us off. All right. At Stevie Swazo on Instagram. See me right here at Swazo TV on Twitch. Okay.
You can find me on Twitter and Twitch, and soon to be everywhere else because I'm working on that, at EK Plus Cards. And then shout out to my local game store because they gave me the hookup on a killer Zendikar collector boosty box, and I was super stoked about that.
That's pretty fucked. He may not be here tonight, but you can still drop Adam a follow at DES_Adam End. He's giving his shoutouts to the top deck games in Westmount, New Jersey, and the comic book store in Glassboro, New Jersey. And as for me, guys, you can find me on Twitch, Twitter, and Instagram at AstrosFlame. I stream a mix of MTG Arena, Motivational Talks, our podcast. Friday nights, I'm hosting our Commander Pods as well as on Sundays. And shout out to Harry Tarantula in 401 Games in the Toronto area for always giving me those awesome hookups that I need. Friends, as always, remember to untap, upkeep, support your local game store, and draw for turn.
Go Bolts!